In an effort to address concerns about the effects of Instagram on developing minds, Meta, its parent company, has created teen accounts that offer a more limited experience for the platform's younger users. Everyone under 16 on Instagram will be automatically migrated to the new service. Their pages will then be made private, and their parents will have more control over the account and will be able to see who their kids are communicating with. 100 million accounts globally will be affected by the change. Dr. Joel Stoddard joins me now for more. He's an associate professor of psychiatry at the University of Colorado School of Medicine, as well as a child and adolescent psychiatrist, at Children's Hospital Colorado. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, let's start. What's your reaction to what Instagram is doing here?
I think it's an excellent first step. So the teen brain is tuned to develop an identity and understand their social roles. And social media sits at a sweet spot there. So having some sort of guardrails meets kids where they're at.
And remind us about that teenage brain. How are the different ways in which it's affected by these kinds of inputs and kind of what's happening in the teenage brain at this period?
Oh, absolutely. A lot of people say the teen brain is underdeveloped, but really it's optimized for what teens need to do. And that is to sort of form their own identity away from their family of origin and understand their social role amongst many other things. Social media has been a major social advance that sort of hits teens in that sweet spot. They're sensitive to the novelty of it. Brains were sort of developed in smaller communities, so it reacts to social media in the same way as if it were a smaller community. For example, we did a study of anxious teens years ago and found that they were more sensitive to social media and rejection than other kinds of teens are. So there's sort of like an interaction and different vulnerabilities among teens. For a balanced discussion, consider the Surgeon General's recent policy statement, which does suggest that social media companies should be attuned to these changes and have some safety regulations in place.
So in this case, Doctor, the Instagram is kind of choking the inflow, making things private so, weird outsiders can't contact you. But isn't part of this also just plain old access, that if you're developing an identity, you're figuring out what your social role is, the brain operates at one pace and social media operates at a hyper fast pace? Are those two things incongruous? And is there really anything that Instagram is doing? In other words, if you still have an Instagram account, aren't you still facing that incongruity?
Absolutely. We all have to adapt to social media. That's been a major social change, although our biology hasn't sort of caught up with that. And hopefully we understand that, much like we have regulations on many things in society that keep us safe. One example is simply wearing a seatbelt. When you get into a car, you might not immediately want that seatbelt around you, but we know that seatbelt saves lives and keeps folks safe. Similarly, one of the proposals was to limit when teens can access Instagram. We know that teens are very susceptible to sleep disruption. So having a cutoff of about 10 p.m., though that might not make me popular amongst teens, might be in their best interest.
And finally, Doctor, the attention economy pelts us all, teens and adults alike, with interruptions, bits of flashy, exciting things that draw us away from what we know from all time, which is that focused work is the way to do the best work. That also would seem to be a challenge for kids who are trying to learn how to do focused work in the first place.
Well, I'm sure it's a challenge for us in middle age, but the kiddos are particularly sensitive because it is true. They, novelty seeking is really important for understanding what your identity and your role is. Like the two major things I was talking about that are important at this stage, and so that helps you seek out rewarding experiences. So It's well known at this point that social media can tap into that vulnerability pretty well. And maybe a little bit more. Another point that you did touch in on was that having those constant interruptions, or maybe even spending the time on social media, takes you away from other things that you might need to be doing, including having face to face interactions, spending time with your family, being maybe a little bit less stressed about your schoolwork because you have time to get it done, or participating in physical activities. I would say, though, that it's really important that in understanding one's role, the Surgeon General's report actually is pretty good. Not to promote it too much, it's just nice to have it consolidated. There are some benefits to teens for social media
Yes.
in there. So we can absolutely regulate it to get the best possible outcome for teens and keep them engaged.
An excellent point of balance there. Dr. Joel Stoddard, psychiatrist at Children's Hospital Colorado. Thank you so much.
Take care.